Hey Year 7s! This week we learned about converting fractions into decimals and rounding whole numbers and decimal numbers. Let's start off with converting fractions into decimals. We learned that there are two ways that we can do this. The first way is that we can take a fraction and write it into a form that is easier for us to convert. So here, 9 over 25, you might look at that and think, oh, I'm not quite sure what that is off the top of my head. But if you had to write this as something over 100, for example, that might be a little bit easier. So you need to think to yourself, how can I get 25 to be 100? In this case, I can do that by multiplying by 4. So if I multiply 25 by 4, I have to multiply 9 by 4 as well. And my answer is going to be 9, 18, 27, 36. I can check my answer here. Let's see. 0.36. Wow! So we learned about writing it in a form that we're used to, like this one, 2 over 5, for example. I can write as something over 10. I did this by multiplying by 2. If I multiplied this number by 2, I would get 4. That was the first method that we learned. The second method comes in handy when we are working with a fraction that we can't easily change into something over 10 or something over 100, or a fraction that we don't know what its decimal form is. So if I said to you 1 over 2 or 1 over 4 or 1 over 5, you probably just know what that is off the top of your head. But let's say that you didn't. Another way that you can do this is by working it out through division. Remember, ultimately here what these fractions are doing is just dividing two numbers. You're saying 2 divided by 5. If I had to do this here, 5 can't go into 2. It goes in 0 times. The number doesn't work. But I can think to myself, well, how many times can 5 go into 20? It can go in 4 times. And then I have nothing left over. And there's my answer. 0.4. Okay, let me try and find something that's not as straightforward as that. Let's say we want to do that same technique again, where we are dividing the fraction instead of just changing it as to something over 100 or something over 10. If I had 3 and I was trying to divide the number 25 into 3, I couldn't do it. 25 is way too big. But if I think to myself, well, how many times does 25 go into 30? It goes in once, and I have 5 left over. How many times does 25 go into 50? It goes in twice, and then I have nothing left over. So I know my answer's done. It's going to be 0.12. Let's see if I get the same thing here. If I had to make this as something over 100, I would times it by 4. 3 times 4 is also going to give me 12. Okay, so this did wind up working. 0.12. Yeah, excellent. Then we went on to rounding decimals. I found the most bizarre game on Zap Zap Math, and it's like Frankenstein's wife that you need to bring her back to life through the power of math, which I don't think is a real world application that you'll ever use in math. Here we learned about rounding off, but we had to be careful because we weren't just working with simple numbers. Here we've started off with tens, we'll do hundreds, and that'll be easy for us to get back into what rounding is. But we started working with tenths, hundredths, and thousandths, which are our decimal numbers. So here, if I wanted to round to the nearest 10, I look at the 10 unit, which in this case is 3. The number after the 3 is 6. Now when I'm rounding, I know that if a number is 5 and larger, I'm going to round up. And if the number is 4 or smaller, I'm going to round down. So in this case, 136 is going to round up to be 140. Whoa, sound. Cool. Here, level 2, round off to the nearest hundreds. So this is my 100 value here, 154. Because this is a 5, it'll round up to 200. Wonderful. Here, the question is, round off to the nearest tenths. Now, when we're working with our fractions, if I have 0, 1, 2, 3, for example, The 1 is a 10th value, the 2 is a 100th value, and the 3 is a 1000th value. And this works exactly the same way. I just need to look at the right decimal point. So here, if I'm rounding to the nearest tenths, I'm looking at the 7th. The number after it is 2, so it's not going to round up, it's going to stay the same. 112,7. Wow, awesome. All right, I think you guys get the point. I'm going to leave this in the description for you, and I'll see you next week. Bye.